Hello friends, welcome to our channel DS Tech Mirror. This is part 6 of our SPFx tutorial series. In this video, we will learn SPFx development with React. Before starting with the actual learning, I would like to request you to erase all the hype if you have created any around SPFx with React. I have come across few developers who think that learning SPFx development with React is a very big thing, but trust me, SPFx development with React is one of the most easiest thing. It makes as a developer, it makes your life easy on working with SPFx with React. So let's start and learn SPFx with React. I will start with the very basic question: what is React? Now, what is React? What you actually think React? I have seen many of us think that React is a framework, like Angular. Angular is a framework. There are different frameworks. So many people think that React is also a framework. So guys, React is not at all a framework. It is just a JavaScript library. It is a powerful JavaScript library, you can say that. And what it is used for? It is only used for building UI interfaces, the front end, the UI which you will be creating in your SharePoint framework, in your web parts or in your components. We can use the power of React to build those powerful UI interfaces. So React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It is developed and maintained by Facebook. It is just a general information for you that it is maintained and developed by Facebook. In Facebook also they have used React heavily. It allows us to create reusable UI component. While working with React, UI will be break down and developed as small components. So over here these are some unknown keywords for you. One could be component, then small components you can say, then what I'm talking about breakdown. So just don't get worried. What I'm trying to say is, let's suppose you have a web page. In a web page you are building left navigation, top navigation, your footer, or you can say one or two more functionalities. In React, we will think everything as a different component. We will think left navigation as a different component, my top navigation as a different component. Let's say if I'm creating a comment component, a comment section in my web page, I will take it as a different component. I will take footer as a different component. I will build all these components separately using React. So in React, everything is a component. So you just put this keyword component in your brain, just register this keyword in your brain, components. In React, everything will be a component, and component is nothing, it's just a small piece of your functionality. Like you can say that you will break down your functionality, you will break down your requirement into small modules, into small component, and we will develop those components separately. It will help us to maintain my code. It will make my code more tidier. So component is nothing, just a small piece of your requirement. In our SPFx component, we will use React as V in MVC, as SPFx provides its own model and controller. So guys, MVC is model view controller. If you don't know, then MVC is model view and controller. So in React, we will just use V of MVC, that is V means view. We will be just creating our view with the help of React in SPFx. So it means it is more easy to learn because we have to just focus on our view. With the help of React, we will be creating our view, that's it. Because SPFx provides its own model and controller. With the help of React, we will be creating our view. As I already explained, we will be creating our user interface. Next, this slide is for those folks who are already using Angular in their day-to-day development. So basically for them, every time they try to draw a comparison with React, like what is the difference between Angular and React, and if they are working with Angular, they think it is really difficult to learn React, whether they should learn React from the basic to start their development with the SPFx. So in this slide, we will see what are the differences between Angular and React. Angular is a complete framework, while React.js is just a library. Angular is a very powerful framework separately. It is a MVC framework, like it provides its own model, view and controller, while React.js is a library which is used to create views, which is used to create my UI. Then second point is also saying the same thing, that Angular gives us the complete MVC model, while React just give only the view. Third is, in React there is one-way data flow, while in Angular it is bidirectional. We will see that in React our data will flow towards the component. From the bidirectional data flow is not possible. From my component, data cannot be flow inwards. There will be only one-way directional, and while in Angular it is bidirectional. Those folks who are not familiar with Angular or React, they can just skip this point for now. Like what kind of data flow is, like what do I mean by unidirectional or bidirectional? And for those who are familiar with Angular, they will completely understand what do I mean by bidirectional data flow. So in just keep in mind, in React there is only one way data flow. Now again, this concept of dependency injection is very much in Angular. In React, it is not supported. Dependency injection is not supported in React. It is supported only in Angular. And the last point is learning React is comparatively fast and simple as compared to Angular. This is my point of view. This is my experience that learning React is very easy as compared to Angular. Although Angular is also not difficult, but if I draw the comparison between the two, between the two, then React is comparatively easy to learn, because you can say that in React only we have to learn about the V of the MVC. In Angular we have to learn about the model, about the V, about the controller. So React is comparatively easy. So these are few highlights of the differences between Angular and component. This is my next slide in which I will talk about the components. So from here I am starting with the basics of React which I will be using in my SPFx. So I am starting with a very basic thing. What is component? Before that, what I will do, let me just open one solution. So guys, this is a solution. This is a SPFx solution which I have created using React, and this is another solution which is there using no JavaScript framework. So those folks who are following this series step by step, they must be knowing I was using this solution like jQuery web part. I'm using this no JavaScript framework from part 1 till part 5. Now this is the part 6. From here I have created this solution using React. So I have already explained how to create a SPFx solution, how to create a SPFx web part. So if in that only just one difference you have to make, only there's just one difference. While selecting the component, we were selecting no JavaScript framework. For React, you have to just select the use React. All the other stuff will remain the same. Just select the React and you will get this solution. So I'm not covering that step again in detail because I've already covered. There's a small minute difference. You have to just select the React option. If you're not aware, just go to, I think I have covered it in part 3, create SPFx solution. You can see that in that just change one step where I'm selecting no JavaScript framework. Over there just select the React and you will get this solution. So I've created this solution and these are my concepts. So what I will do, side by side I will try to relate these components in my solution, so you will get a better understanding. And after completing this concept, then we will move on to the real demo, actual demo. So I'm talking about component. I told you in React everything is a component. So component, it is nothing like it's a JavaScript function only. They accept this is important point. They accept inputs, and React they accept inputs and return React element describing what should appear on the screen. Now this means component accepts certain inputs. I can give certain inputs to the component, and these inputs are called props in React. So this is another keyword. So just keep registering these keywords in your brain. One is the component, second is the props. It is called properties. If I have to pass certain properties to my component, I will do it using props, using React. And component reacts something. It is called, that something is called element. That every component reacts an element, and that element will appear on my UI. Don't worry if you are not able to understand. You will understand in a moment. See over here, this will be kind of structure in my SPFx like this. Okay, let me first take you to the solution. See guys, this is my React solution, and if I have to put it side by side, both the solutions, and this is my no JavaScript framework solution. So what I will do, I will just put them side by side to make you understand. See, now I will start with this source folder. In the source folder, I have already explained there will be this JavaScript file is there, CSS file is there, localization file is there, all is there. What difference is there when I will select React? I will expand my source folder. Now this is my source folder. Over here web part is there, but one thing is there, inside web part I have got this component folder. Let me collapse it. Now see, component folder is there, localization is there, my manifest file is there, all other files remain the same. It's just I'm getting one extra folder, component. So I told you in React we have to work with the component. So automatically SPFx commands create this project scaffold, create this project structure and giving me this component folder. Later on we will go into this component and we will see the files, what are the files in this component. So no issues with that. We will just come into this. So the difference is component. Now next thing what I told you is that if I have to pass certain properties to the component, I will do it using properties. So in that I will be using props, and component will return elements. So till now three keywords we have come across: component, second is properties, and third is the element. So let me go into this web part file. This is my web part file, and this is my web part file for no JavaScript framework. See, this is for no JavaScript framework. Let me expand it now. This is for no JavaScript framework. So guys, this is my no JavaScript framework code, by default code, which will be present over here. This is my code. I just want to compare the two files. That is, this is the name of my file, jQuery webpart.ts file. And now I will go to my React solution. My React solution name is CRUD operation webpart.ts file. So we will learn the differences, what are the concepts over here. Using this solution, I will try to explain you. So I will first of all go to this solution, that is the no JavaScript framework solution. And this I have already explained you all this in my previous videos, that this is my webpart.ts file. This is my class which is extending this base client side webpart, and in this we have render method, and inside the render method I am writing my DOM. My DOM is document object model, that is the UI of my SPFx webpart. Now just observe this for a moment. This is the basic, and now I will move to my React solution. In my React solution, what is there is, see, this is same. It is also inheriting base client side web part. So now this is my React solution. Now we will try to find the differences between the two solutions. This is also inheriting from base client side web part class. In this also I have a render method, but now over here directly I am writing my DOM. Over here the difference is, you can see this element, and then you can say this React DOM.render. Now we will try to learn this. See, over here what is there is, let me go to this component file. Okay, now this is my component file. In the component file, whatever code I will be writing is, basically I will write my entire code in this file, component.tsx file. You can see this. This will be my component.tsx file. In this I will write my code inside this render method. At the top I will be having certain imports, and then I will be having this render method. In this render method you can see this react element, and then this will be my this will return, this will be the return, the entire DOM it will return as a element. To whom it will return? It will return inside my this file, webpart.ts file. Over here I have already created this element. See, react.react element. This is my component, CRUDOps.component. These are the properties I am passing to my component, and over here I am rendering my element. From where I am getting this element? My component file is returning my element. Whatever will be there inside this return statement, inside this return method, whatever the structure is there, it is getting written inside this webpart.ts file, and it is getting rendered in my webpart. So this is the small flow, this is the basic flow. And if I have to pass any properties from my webpart file to my component file, I will pass it from here. This is here constant element, react.react element. This is the default interface which we have. This is my element. This is react.react element. For now leave this iCRUD properties, leave this, because I will cover properties after this. Just we will focus on component and element. Now over here I am creating react.create element, and react.create element is asking because it has certain overload methods. So inside this I am passing my component CRUDOps, and inside this I am passing my properties, and my component is returning the element. Over there it is getting rendered. Another important thing is, as a developer, I don't have to code anything in this file, CRUD operation webpart.ts file. The only thing is I pass this properties from here. All this code by default I get it. Public render, constant element, all the code I will get it by default. I am just passing from here. I am just passing the properties, and everything I will code in my component, because in React everything will be written as component. So in this I will be writing my entire code. Just in JavaScript, no JavaScript framework, everything I was writing inside my render method in my webpart.ts file. Over here I will write inside my component file, inside this render method. I have created the entire HTML template over here, and it will get written over here, and then it will get rendered in my UI, in my web page using this React DOM.render element is this and this dot DOM element. So this is the small flow. So now you can see over here, I will go back to my PPT. Component nothing but like JavaScript function. Yes, they are just like JavaScript function. You can see over here. So yeah, so this is component and my component extension is CRUD operation.tsx. This is the extension of my component file. So inside this is also just like JavaScript function export default class react.component. It will be extending react.component. Inside this we are passing properties and state. Leave it just for now, forget it. Just see, this is just a simple oops concept that we are writing a class, and inside this I am having a render method. By default I will be getting it. By default I will get the entire structure. You might not get all this component. Just forget all this. You can skip all this. Don't look at on all this code. Just see, you will get by default this extract react.component. Inside render you can write your HTML structure, whatever you want to write. The way you want to create your UI, you can write your HTML and then it will get written in your UI. So in my slide I'm saying this is for SPFx ES6 class DSTechmirror extracts react.component, render method will be there, and inside render method I will return the my DOM. I will write my HTML structure, I will write my UI, it will get returned to my web part TS file. Over there it will get rendered. Nothing I have to do. And this is, if you are not following ES6 like in the old JavaScript, this is also a component. This is also a simple, because component are nothing. Component are just like modules. We are just breaking our complex functionality into different modules. Just like that we are creating the component. Split your requirement into small component. I told you it will be easy to maintain. So guys, I have just created a new SPFx solution using React, because the existing solution which I was just showing you, it was having some extra code. I don't want you to get confused, so I created a new solution. I will just take you through that. You can see this is my component file. I have created this hello world.tsx. This is my component file. I told you inside this you can see this is the code which you will get. This is the default class hello world, which will be extends react.component. Inside this the structure, the DOM is there, which will get returned as an element. You can see public, this is the render method. Inside this my UI method, or you can see the DOM structure is there, and react.react element, which will get returned to this hello world.ts file. That is my web part file. Inside web part file, this is my element which will get returned, and finally it will get rendered over here. So you can see over here, as I already explained, in this file we don't have to code anything. We will code everything in my component file. Over here, from this component constant element, I will pass my properties to my component. If I need to pass any properties, over here I will code everything, and it will get passed from here to the web part file in the form of an element, because every component will return an element, and an element is nothing but a UI object which will get returned, and it will get rendered over here using react DOM.render. So from now I will use this solution only, because it is the blank solution which you will get when you will create a new SPFx solution using React. You will get the same solution, and it will be easy for you to learn. So now let's move on. So component I have covered. After component I have elements. What are elements in React? Element also I have covered. I will just explain you the definition. A React element is what we get returned from the component. What my component will return, that is my element. Over here, this is my component file. This in the component folder tsx file. So this is my, and inside render method, this is I am returning. So this whatever is inside my return, my component will return that part. So this is the element. So according to the definition, this is the element which will get returned. This element is the object that the function return. It's an object that virtually describes the DOM of the component, correct? To render the element, React, this is the code if you want to render your element. But over here in SPFx we do not have to write this code also, because in my web part file, if I'll go over, by default you will get is react DOM.render element. You have to just design your component. That's now let's move on to the another concept, that is called properties. So what are properties in React? Properties are arguments used to pass data to the components, and properties are read only. Just this is important. Just note it down. Properties are read only. Just remember this. And if I have to pass any data to my component, I will use properties. That's it. So let's come to the solution. Over here you can see, when you will create a solution, by default you will get this in the component folder. By default you will get this interface. your web part name props.ts. So this is my properties file. Inside this I will define my properties, and with the help of this I will pass the properties to the component. By default there will be one property defined for you, that is description. So all the properties I will define over here, so their type. So if I, let's say if I have to pass the list URL, so what I can do, I will type list URL, or I'll say site URL. So if I have to pass site URL dot colon, for defining the type I will type colon, and type is string. So I have created this property over here, site URL, and you can see I can see an error over here inside this element, constant element. So what I have to do, any property I will define in my interface, I have to pass the value from here. So site URL, I will copy it and I will paste it, site URL, and let's say I pass the blank. So you can see now I'm not getting any error. So it is very easy to pass the property. Just define your properties in this interface, which by default you will get in your component folder. So just define the properties over here, assign them the value over here. You can assign any value over here. If you have the URL ready, just type it over here instead of blank, and then you can, in your component, you can use these properties anywhere if you want, and using them is very easy. What you have to do, this dot props dot, and you will get the property description and site URL, and you will get your value over here. So this is how we pass the properties into the component. So this is the concept of my properties. Another important point is properties are read only. So whatever the value you will define over here, after that we cannot change the properties value. Properties are used to pass data to the component. There's an interface. Your web part name props.ts. This is the interface you will get. Define your properties over here, declare your properties over here, then go to your web part.ts file, pass them the value, assign any value over here, and then directly in the component file you can use it, this dot props dot. And in the slide also I have mentioned over here, to fetch value from properties, this dot props dot property name. And this is the interface which I showed you also, interface, sample properties, description. So these are the properties. This is how you can pass any property to your component. So properties is a very simple concept. So till now we have covered component, element, and properties. Now next we are going to move to another very important concept, that is state. Now what is this state in React? State is nothing. State is also the state of my component. What is that? React component has a built-in state object. Let's go to the solution. This is my component file. I'll press enter and I can show you this dot. So inside this render method, I can show you this dot. You can see state is there. By default, this object is there. By default, this property is there, this dot state, and then I have method related to it, this dot set state. So these two are important, this dot state and this dot set state. What it is, I'll tell you now. By default it is there, it is a built-in state object. Whenever state object of component changes, component re-renders. Never change the state of component from inside the component render method. State object can store a number of properties, and state is not read-only. State object is initialized in the constructor. To extract the values from state object, this dot state dot property name, and change the state value, this dot set state. So I have just, in this slide I have just highlighted some key points regarding the state. Now we will see one by one. So why I need state? Because properties are read only and it is used to pass the data. Now if I want to display anything, let's say over here I created a div. Okay, over here I created a div and I want to display some value over here which is dynamic, which will keep on changing based on my input. So how I'm going to display over here? So for that we have states. I can define a state for this component. So to how we can define a state? Similarly, by default we do not get interface for state, but we can create it. Just right click on your component, new file, and you can type whatever name you want to give. I will go with the same naming convention, hello world state.ts. So this is how I will define an interface for the state. Now I want to export it because I want other modules to use it. So export hello world, and after hello world, and I will change it to state props. Instead of props I will take state and export interface. This is an interface. So this will be the interface for my state. Now I want to say title is string. Now I have declared my state over here. Now I can use it in my component. To use it into the component, what I have to do, because this is a different file, I have to import it first. Because I have already exported in my interface, you can see, I will close this. This is my state. I have exported it in my component file. I will import it. Import this from // hello world state. That's it. From here, I will import my state. What is the name? Title. I'll copy the name. This is the name of my interface. I will copy this. And if you have any confusion, you can take the reference of this properties, because over here by default you get this statement import, how they are importing the property. The same way you have to import the state also. It's just you have created a separate interface, because all the properties, all the states which I need for this component, I will be declaring in this interface, and I can use in this state. So now state is ready. If I want to display it over here, I can use it like this in a curly braces, this dot state dot. So this is how we created the state. Now let's go back to the slide and we will cover all the points one by one. So this we have covered. React component is a built-in state object. Now I want to reshuffle some points. Over here we saw state object is initialized in the constructor. So what I will do, I'll take this point and I will cover this first. Now we will see how we can initialize the state in the constructor. So let's go back to the code. So this is my code. Till now what I have done, I have created an interface. So I have declared one title as a string. Now I will see how I can initialize my state in the constructor, and that is my title. So I will go to the component file. Component file extension is type tsx file. In this, I told you states will be initialized in the constructor. So this is my default class. In this I will create my constructor. This is my constructor. So it is giving me an error. We'll see what is the error. Error is constructor for derived class must contain a super call. Okay. So I will write my super call over here. This is super, and then it should be of type properties read only. So what I will do, it is a parameterized constructor. So props, it will be of type hello world props, the properties of this state. That is, from here you can see hello world props. So this is done, and now I will pass the properties over here. So this is done. Next is I have to initialize the state. To initialize the state, I showed you there are two. One is property, another is method. That is this dot state. This dot state is equal to this. Like this way, I will initialize my state. My state, what is my state property? So I have to initialize title over here. I will use title, but you can see I'm not getting any IntelliSense, or I'm getting an error also. Title. So before initializing the state, I will import the state interface over here. What I will do, I will simply copy this, the import line, which is by default, which is already there for the properties, and I will over here I will just change the name. Instead of, I can see you will get the IntelliSense also dot / this is my interface for state, and over here my state interface name hello world state. So my import is also done. Now I will initialize the state, that is this dot state equal to curly braces. I have declared title over here, title colon and blank, or I can say ds tech mirror is the title. So this is how we declare the state, or we initialize the state in the constructor. This is done. Now how I will be using this state in my render method. So for that, what is there, I will create one div. I will, let's say I will create one div over here, and my div is ready. Now in my div, I want to display the value with the help of this state. So what I will do, I will use this dot again state dot. Now it is not giving me IntelliSense, it is not giving me title. So why it is not giving me IntelliSense? Because in my default class over here you can see React.component, I have passed it is of type hello world props, and over here I have to pass the state also. So hello world state. So these are some important steps. You can just note down that you have to pass the state over here in my component default class hello world state. And now comma, because it was already there, this dot state dot, it will give. Okay, I forgot one thing, we have to type in curly braces. This is one thing in React, we have to type in curly, this dot state dot, and I'm getting title. So whatever the value I have initialized it over here, I will be seeing in my div, in my UI, because this is my component. Now as soon as I save it, when I will run, my component will return this to my web part file over here, this element, and it will get rendered in my web part. So this is the flow. This is how I can initialize my state, I can create my state. And if I have to set the state, like I have initialized it, but in my code, based on the requirement, based on some input, based on some calculation, I want to change the value of the state. For that, how I will do, I can do this dot set state, and using this method I can change the state, but I will go step by step. So let's go back to the slide again. Next is, whenever the state object of component changes, component re-renders. Meaning of this is, whenever my state will change, my component will render. Whenever the state will change, this render method will call again anywhere in the code in my component. And how can we change the state of component using this dot set state? So whenever I will use this dot set state, my render method will be called again. So another very important point is, never use this dot set state inside render method, because then it will lead into a dead block, because you will type this dot set state inside your render method, your render method will be called again, inside that again there will be this dot set state, and it will go into an infinite loop. So never write this dot set state in a render method. For that, we will see how we can change the, where we will be changing a state. So let's say if I am creating any method, public test method, so inside that I can change my state, test method. Like this, I have written a method. Over here I can use this dot set state. Inside this I can type my state name, title, this, and I can give the value over here, let's say state change. So this is how we change the state. So whenever I will call this method, inside this there will be this dot set state, and it will call my render method, and in the DOM I can see the change. I can see the change in my UI. So this is the concept of state and properties. Moving to the next point. Never change the state of component from inside the component render method to avoid dead block. Already explained you. State object can store n number of property, and state is not read only. Correct. Over here we have created an interface, and you can store n number of properties over here. The title is one of the properties. Based on your requirement, based on your logic, you can declare your state over here, and you can use it in your component. To extract value from state object, this dot state dot property name, and in the curly braces, I will put it in front of you only in this curly brace. With this you can fetch the property value from the state, and we have also covered this dot using this dot state dot title. Using this we will cover. Guys, one more thing, this is not a demo. I will create a separate demo for this using React. In my next video I will come up with a proper demo. This is just I am trying to explain you with the code, so don't consider this as a demo. Demo will be separate. In this we will see everything. We will properly use the state to, and we will properly use properties. In that you will get more clarity. This is just I am trying to map my theory with the hands-on with the help of this solution. And last is change the state value this dot set state. So this is also covered. Always use the set state method to change the state object. It will ensure that the component knows it has been updated and calls the render method. So I have covered everything in this slide with this solution I told you. So till now you can see this is the only new file which got created when I created React solution component. In this we have covered tsx file, that is component file, properties file we have covered. This is the new file which we will create to store our state. So this is also we have covered, and this is the SCSS file, the same file which we are having in web part also, which we will use for the CSS purpose. So in short, we have covered this component folder also, and rest of the things is pretty much the same. If I find anything new, I will cover it with you. So moving to the slide now. Next slide is about React Lifecycle. This is very important because I will be using this heavily when I will start with the demo. In my next video, I will, because where you will change the state, how you will change the state, it will depends a lot on your understanding of the React Lifecycle. Simply register these 5 methods in your mind. What will happen? First of all, I will tell you this component will mount method and component did mount method. They are by default available in your state, because if I go back to my solution in my component, if I type over here component C, over here there are various methods. Component did mount, they are by default it is available. So you just register them, learn them, register them, because we will use them. Component will mount. So React Lifecycle is like this. Component will mount method. First of all, this will get triggered. Set the initial state in the constructor, then this will get triggered, my constructor. After that, render method will get called, and if after that anywhere we are changing the state in my render method, that will get called, and again my render method will get called. So you have to learn this life cycle. It is there. So what is component will mount is executed before rendering on both server and the client side. Before my render method will get called, my component will mount get triggered, and component did mount is executed after the first render only on the client side, because once my render method will get called, after that my component did mount method will get called out, and we will use this method for various purposes in the demo. So another new learning is this method component did mount, component will mount, and this is the life cycle. First this will call, then the constructor, then my render method, then component did mount, set state, and render. Basically whenever set state is called, so render is automatically get called. So basically these 4 steps are the life cycle. Just fix this in your mind. Component will mount before my render method get called, component did mount after my render method will get called. And some extra theories there. This is where AJAX request and DOM or state update should occur. Here we will changing the state. Basically this method is also used for integration with other JavaScript framework. This is just extra information for you, because it's not like that only in component did mount we will be changing the state. We will change the state. We will see in the demo based on our requirement, based on our logic. I will show you in the demo. I'll just take you through whatever we have learned till now. Simple. These 2 slides are just the introduction. What is React and Angular versus React. Component, everything will be a component. Element, component will return an element, passing values through properties to the component, and like storing data or changing anything in the component, or if anything is getting changed in the UI, we will tackle it with the help of state. In the lifecycle, component will mount and component did mount. In between we have render. Before render component will mount, after render component did mount, and before render this set initial state in the constructor. Obviously because render method is the, obviously constructor will get called. This is logical. See, because this is my method, and first initially in the class constructor will get called, then only method will come. So before anything component will mount, then this constructor, then this method, and if component did mount is there, then that method. So this is simple. So in this slide these 2 words are the new words. There are other methods also. If we go to this, there are other methods also. If you type just component, see component did cache, component did mount. If in the demo, if anywhere I will use them, so I will explain you then and there itself. Right now these 2 are, according to me, these 2 are enough, because in my next slide I have covered those methods also. See, component will receive properties, should component update, component will update, component did update, component will unmount. So I have created this slide just to give you a hint that there are other methods also which are by default come with React. So I have not used them till now. Whenever we will use them, I will explain you there itself. In this slide I am giving you the basic information, just a plain simple idea what is component will receive properties invoked as soon as the properties are updated before another render is called. Should component update, should return true or false value. Component will update is called just before render. Component did update just after rendering, because did update, for that we will be using component did mount. So you can skip this slide for now. I have just added because to give you an idea that there are other methods also. You can skip it if you want. If you want, you can just go through them. For a next demo or for the next video, I won't be using these methods. I will be using component did mount if required. That also if required. And there are some hands-on demo videos already exist on my channel, like handle large list, Azure functions in SPFx. Over there I must be using component will mount and did mount. So now those guys who are not aware about React and were facing issues with those videos, it should be clear to them. Now you can now go to those videos and it will be much clearer to you. Let's go to the next slide, that is React events. Now these are some basic fundas, basic concepts for the React events, because there are various events like on click, on mouse hover, on load. So all those events are there. So in React, how we will tackle them, in this slide I will show you just that. So I show you even if we are getting the state, if I am fetching the value of the state property, we are doing everything inside curly braces. So just keep it in your mind, React events are written inside curly braces, on click and method name. That's it, simple. We will follow camel syntax because React understands camel syntax. Instead of if I have to type on click, if I type on click like this, it may not take it as an event. So if you have to follow the camel syntax, on click. That is the second word. First alphabet should be capital. That is the camel syntax. Now in this I have just tried to show you how we are going to write our events. See, This is my component. Inside this I have created this method. This is my render file. Inside this I have the return. Inside this, let's say I have created a button on click and this dot test. So on my button click, this method will get called. This is how we are going to register our event inside curly braces. This is the important thing inside curly braces and camel notation. React DOM dot render is automatically taken care by my SPFx. My component file will simply return this, and next rest my web part file will take care. So you can skip this also, last line. Moving to the next slide. What if we have to pass in arguments in our React? Because over here we have not passed any arguments. You can see over here we have not passed any arguments. What if we have to pass in arguments? So passing an argument, what we can do, there are two ways, like using arrow function and use the binding. So now this is the new words using arrow function. They get introduced in ES6. In ES6 we will be using arrow functions. So before going forward, I'm thinking to explain you the arrow functions. Then I'll come back to this slide. Okay, so what are arrow functions? Arrow function got introduced in ES6. They are simple. See, this is the regular method we are writing. You just focus on this. This is the simple method which I'm writing. See, this I think everybody can understand. And now if I have to write an arrow function, what changes they have done? Test, put one equal to, then this method call, method bracket, and just put an arrow function. This is the only difference. This is the, I think, the simplest explanation to understand the arrow function. Why arrow function have got introduced, I will explain you, but how to write the arrow function, what is the syntax for that, this is the simple. Just write down your normal method, put one equal to before your bracket, and put one arrow after that. That's it. And now why arrow function got introduced? See, if I am calling this method on button click, like if I call this simple method on button click which I showed in my earlier slide, then I have to bind this method with this in the constructor of the component. If few of you have gone through my other demos which are already on my channel, then they must be aware, because I am binding those methods in my constructor. If you are new to this, don't get confused. I am there to explain you. See, what is happening is, if I am writing this notation, if I am writing this type, so what will happen? On my button click, my method will not get called until and unless I bind them in the constructor. How to bind? Let's go and see in the code itself. See, this is my component file, this is constructor. If I write this method and on div click, let's say I'll take this example only, on click. Okay, on click, and I'll say equal to on click test, this dot test method. So like this way it will not work. In my demo I will show you again, because in my demo again I will show you why it is not working. Over here I am telling you this will not work until and unless I will go here and bind it with my this keyword. How to do that? This dot test method equal to this dot test method dot bind, and this. Now it will work. If you are using plain method, not arrow function, you have to write this extra line. And why? It is there in our slide. Reason is, in regular function, this keyword represent the object that called the function, which could be Windows, button, click, etc. See, what is happening is, in regular function, see, if I'm calling this method by button click, my this keyword will represent the button. If I'm calling by on load or on Windows, then that this keyword will represent the Windows or that particular object. It will not represent this method particularly. So we have to go explicitly and bind it with this keyword, then only it will get bind with this method. Otherwise it will represent my button or my Windows. So to overcome this issue, these arrow functions got introduced. You can see in my arrow functions, if I'm using arrow function, no need to bind explicitly. In arrow function, this keyword always represents the object that defined the arrow function. It always get bind to my method. So this is the new concept or arrow function which got introduced, and you can use anyone in your React or in your SPFx, because as soon as you will write this method and if you will not bind it, you will get an error in your console, and then you will come to know that you have to bind it with your this keyword in your constructor. So either way you can write. So we will follow both the approaches in the demo, and I will show you which will get clear to you. Over here, just register arrow function in your brain. This should not be an alien word in the demo. And this binding also. All these are points. You can just make an highlight of this point: properties, state, component, element, arrow function, binding. You should be knowing about these keywords, and you are ready with React to use in SPFx. So let's come back to the earlier slide, because over here I have to show you how we can pass the argument. Now you are aware about the arrow function. So to pass an argument, on click I show you equal to, over here I show you equal to this, and how this is I am going to call my method. Now if I have to pass the parameter, what I will do, if I'm not using arrow function, in the bracket this comma hello, so this will be hello will be my parameter, like this. I'll type this comma in the and hello, any variable name value column, and over here this is how you can receive your value. This is this event AV I have taken it, and in the second parameter I can in the value I will get the hello. This is how you can pass the parameter. Now if you are using arrow functions, what is the difference? Bracket, arrow, this dot test, and hello. You don't need to type this extra keyword. You don't need to type this. Directly you can pass your parameters. As simple as, if you are getting confused with this, just go with the arrow function. This is my parameter. Over here bracket, we can see from here bracket my arrow for the arrow function, and we are done. Over here value, done. So see, arrow functions makes my code more tidier, more clean. It is easy to understand. So definitely we should use arrow functions. So this is how we can pass my values to the argument. This is how I can pass arguments. So we can use any of the approach you are comfortable with. I think now I become more comfortable with the arrow function, so I will use this, but in the demo I will show you both, and then it depends on you. Whichever approach you can want to take, you can go ahead with that. So arrow function is also completed. Next come with, so this is the last concept before we start with our demo, virtual DOM. This is just a theoretical concept, but this is most exciting thing about React, why people are using React, why it is more fast, why it is so good in performance. So I'll tell you what is written in these slides. See, React is maintaining a virtual DOM. You know what is DOM? DOM is a document object model, just the structure of the UI. What is, let's say if you have one div and two button. So at the backend you will be creating whatever the HTML structure is there, that is called DOM. And how DOM is represented in the browser? In the form of a tree structure. The parent element, then the node, child nodes, like that. So what happens whenever anything gets changes in the DOM, in a normal DOM, I'm not talking about a virtual DOM now, in a normal scenario. So if I change anything in my DOM, it will get reflected in my UI. Again, I have changed anything, it will get reflected in my UI. But more frequent changes to the DOM affects my performance, because it is a tree structure. Whenever anything will get changed, it has to reflect the changes to the entire tree, depending on its children, sub children, nodes, child nodes, everywhere. So it affects the performance. As my DOM grew, there will be more elements, more child elements, so everything has to get refreshed. So it affects the performance. To overcome this, React has introduced a concept called virtual DOM. What is there in the virtual DOM? What it will do, it will create an exact copy of the DOM, and it is called virtual. It is a lightweight copy. This is a lightweight copy. Now React is having the same copy of the DOM called virtual DOM. Now what is happening? Anything you change in your code, so what it will do, automatically it will create one more virtual DOM. You can say version 1 of the virtual DOM, and version 0 is already there. Now next it will compare version 0 and version 1 of the DOM. Whatever changes it will find in between version 0 and version 1, only those changes will get reflected in the actual DOM. It will not reflect the entire tree of the DOM. It will just reflect the changes. So main concept is React maintains the virtual DOM. Whenever get changes, it creates another version of the virtual DOM. It compares the changes in the version 0 and the version 1, and only the changes get updated in the actual DOM. And because of this, we get the better performance. Now let's go through the theory. Basically, I have written this only in these slides. The most interesting concept of React is virtual DOM. DOM is document object model. DOM in simple word represent the UI of your application. Whenever there is a change in the UI, DOM gets updated to display the updated UI. Internally, DOM is represented as a tree structure. Any change in UI will lead to update the entire tree. I explained you all the nodes and the child nodes, which make result in slow performance. Next slide. Virtual DOM. To overcome this, React has this concept of virtual DOM. React maintains two versions of existing DOM. First version is by default replica of the actual DOM. Second version gets created when there is a change in the actual DOM. Both the versions will get compared, and only the changes will get applied to the actual DOM. So guys, with this I have covered all the basic concept of the React which we will be using in our demo, and with this concept you are ready to start working with React in the SPFx. I have covered this from the very basic. Still you have doubts, you know how to reach out to me. In the last slide of my every video there's a proper information how you can reach out to me apart from YouTube comments. So we can discuss it over there. But before closing it, I will take you again in a very quick way so that everything will get revised, and then we are ready with a demo. See, what is React? It is a library, not a framework. I'll cover only the highlights of every slide. Angular versus React complete framework. React is a library and it is providing only view apart from MVC. Component, everything will be a component. Whenever you create a SPFx solution, you will get one component. Don't do anything in the webpart.ts file. From here, only pass the properties. Everything we will do in the component file. In the component file, by default, I have property interface, but I will create state interface. I will import both of them in my component.tsx file. Component will return element. What is element? Anything written in my render. The HTML structure written in my render method will get written to my web part. It will get rendered in my UI. Simple. What is element? Whatever my component will return. Simple terms. Properties, I have to pass some. See, we pass values to the function. In React, we pass values to the component. We call them as properties. Simple. I want to do operations. I want to display values in the UI. How I will display them? I will use state. I will create interface. Define n number of state. I will use them. To initialize state, use constructor. This dot state equal to curly braces. To set the state, this dot set state. React lifecycle, component will mount. Now start the image of that component in your brain. What is the first thing? Method is there. In method, first class is there. In class, constructor will get called. Automatically render with met get called. Then component did mount. That's it. React lifecycle, other methods. If you want, you can go through them. Else, you can skip them. React events. Major things about React: use camel notation. Otherwise, React will not understand the events. And define them in curly braces. On click equal to curly braces event, whatever method you want to call. Passing the argument, use arrow functions or either way, or normal functions, regular function. The syntax is in front of you. Whichever way you are comfortable, you can use. I will, in my demo, I will use both of them. Arrow function, I told you. Basic, very simple function. You can see. If you do not want to write extra binding, go with arrow function. Else, go with regular function. And last, virtual DOM. Again, I will take you to this solution. You will not get confused in the next video, and you will be comfortable with it, because today we have started with the React and I have covered all the basic concept. So this is how my solution is there. I expand the source file, web part file, and I came across this new folder component. First of all, I'll go to the webpart.ts file. Everything is same apart from this render method. Inside this render method, I can see this element. This is the end React DOM.render. So this element is there, and this is my component, hello world. So from here, I will pass my property to the component. Any property I will create in my interface, automatically I have to pass it from here. Otherwise, it will give me an error. I'll show you quickly. This is my property. I'll say test : string. You see, I'll get an error over here. Here, what I have to do? Just test, error gone. This is how I pass the properties. Now I pass the properties. I want to use the properties in my component. Go to component. Component have tsx file. Go here, anywhere. Let me see. This dot props dot. Use any property. Description, site URL, test. Any property you can use. Similarly, by default, state interface React does not give us, so we'll create an interface. Right click on your component, new file, save it as ts file. I'm not going to create a file now. So this is my state. Just if you are not comfortable, take a reference from the existing interface of the properties. Just replace with the state and declare your state over here. You don't have to do anything. Come to your component file, tsx file. You want to initialize it, write this code. And one more change you have to do in your default class. By default, we have to pass this state also. That's it. Use anywhere you can use state. State is also done. So guys, these are the small concepts which we should already know before working with SPFx in React. So guys, with this we have come to an end of today's video. If you like this video, please like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. and press the bell icon to get the notification for our new videos. If you have any doubts or if you need any clarification, feel free to reach out to us either through YouTube comments, or you can reach out to us through email, Facebook, and my Twitter handle. You can also follow me on Twitter to get all the updates from the Office 365 world. Till my next video, much love, keep learning. Thank you.